You know, you told me, I sat down with you and you were telling me that the poorest people are found in the cities. People who are not healthy are found in the cities.
Very true. That's the reason why you will realize that the biggest hospital
Yes.
is actually found in the city. The biggest jail
Yes.
is in the city. It also tells you about the crime rate of the city. Biggest custodians of our culture in this country are people in the rural areas. There are things that our forefathers used to do. We just need to adopt them.
When one builds a beautiful home in the rural areas, no matter how rich you are, you're supposed to play a role in the community, socialize with the community. Why did you say that?
Because the community is your first security, especially when you decide to go all out. The easiest place that you can start to develop is your own rural home.
Exactly.
You know, we all come from somewhere
Yes.
in terms of our rural homes. Develop it and make it comfortable and convenient for you to be able to retreat there and then enjoy life and reflect and reboot. But also, the place must not be a place where you then go when you retire, because you have a lot of shocks trying to survive in that space. It's a place that you must now be constantly visiting so that you get used to the place, you develop it, and then you are able even to run projects from there and improve your livelihood from that place. Rural development, and rural development is basically looking at developing eco-friendly structures that mimic the African traditional architecture, you know, your rendezvous kind of homestead, and also making sure that that homestead is also convenient and provides comfort to you. That's under rural development. And then the second leg is rural enterprise, making sure that you are able to generate significant income out of the project that you can actually run at your rural place, and grow that at an household level.
Yes.
But also we are now coming in to say, as the country boy, we want to make sure that there's sustenance in that. So we are now talking about the growing the enterprise by ensuring that there is value addition of your products and services, so that you are not constantly rushing to the city with raw products. You know, you can actually have them processed, further enhanced, and value is added on the product
In the rural areas.
And then you realize better returns and more value for your products. So there is value addition, and then if you have resources that are good enough, we can then set up factory shells where we will then be having different processing productions within the rural communities, and that becomes the panacea for rural industrialization.
It's amazing.
So that's the second leg. And then the third leg is really countryside living, which talks of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And lifestyle for us has to do with a healthy lifestyle. Your food production must be organic, very natural, so that it takes care of your health. We talk of, even your social lifestyle,
Yes.
the way you interact with people. When you are in the rural areas, it's the only place where if there's a funeral within the village, everybody attends to the funeral.
Exactly.
Unlike in the city where somebody can be having a funeral here and another one hosting a party there. So we don't want that kind of a scenario. But also we are encouraging people that even as they move from the cities, or whether from diaspora or local cities into the rural communities, they must learn to assimilate and respect the values and the cultures within the rural setup.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in a rural community where you want to be starring,
Yes.
build a mega mansion, and you don't care about how everybody else is living.
Yes.
Be part of the community. So that is what we are also driving under country living. We are also pushing the preservation of our culture, the preservation of our environment. don't cut down trees. I have set up a model here which ensures that we have a good preservation of our environment, our culture, and also an organic food production cycle, which anybody can just mimic in their own rural setup and be able to live comfortably.
So you are talking of rural industrialization. Are we not going to destroy what we have in the rural areas?
So this is why we have the country living, which is specifically dealing with issues to do with preservation of culture, our African traditions. There are things that our forefathers used to do. We just need to adopt them. Even the food production, organic food production, our forefathers used to do that. Having seed banks and all the stuff. What we are saying is, as we talk of rural industrialization, we're just upscaling the things that we have always been doing. You and I will know that kumamisha, there are people who have taken their kids to school because maiva irsuna majuzi, wachisona. Others will then be doing gardening or vegetables. But as soon as those kids, have grown up, they are now out of school, they are able to fend for themselves. They stopped doing those things.
Exactly.
So what we are saying is that you can still continue in the upscale. This will no longer be your only market. You are now looking at the entire nation. But there are products and services which are also on demand, even globally. As organic and as natural as they are, you are able to then put a touch of excellence to them and be able to export it, either as a product or even as a service. You can imagine, somebody coming from out there wanting even to visit a rural village. And by the way, when somebody is visiting your country, the biggest draw card is culture.
Yeah, exactly.
It will be amazing to find tourists coming to the Harare en route to the rural area so that they can experience our culture. So we want that to be preserved, because that in itself is an attraction.
Yes.
For people who are out there. They come here, they experience what it is like to be, riding a Scott cart, drawn by donkeys or cattle, going to the river. Instead of using a quad bike, you are actually at the back of a cart going to the river. You have your picnic there. We serve you with our own traditional maheus and our traditional cuisine, and served in the excellence of our culture. That becomes, a huge attraction, an attraction that a lot of people out there would say, I want to visit Zimbabwe. I want to be able to do this.
I'm scared and sad at the same time. When I think about Zimbabwean culture, do you think that as a nation we have a culture?
Yes, we do. We have always had a culture.
But we are drifting away from it.
Oh yeah, because culture is dynamic. It changes, but there are certain values.
Yes.
Certain ethos, that form the bedrock of who we are as a people.
Yes.
As Zimbabweans. Even when we go out there, despite all the achievements that we might, have attained,
yes,
all the good things, all the education, everything, there are things that when you do, people would then say, that's not being Zimbabwean. Because we are known for a certain way of handling people, handling things, our lifestyle, that defines us as Zimbabweans.
Very true.
And that becomes, like the backbone of our culture. Our attitudes, our hospitality, the way we work, our work ethic, it has to be, something that is drawn from our culture. But also, when you, like I said, when you go in the rural areas, you still find our culture being very strong. And being, the backbone of the community progress. You can't talk about a community moving forward without its cultural backbone. And there are men and women who have been tasked with the responsibility of, upholding our culture and making sure that that culture is preserved. We've got the chiefs, we've got the sabukus, we've got the machinda sabuku, people like that. They make sure that our culture is well preserved, and those people are still respected in our communities.
It's amazing.
So they become very, very important. This is why I'm always saying people who are going to go back to the rural areas from the cities, or coming from the diaspora going in the rural communities, you need to respect that hierarchy. It's very, very important, because you might be having everything in terms of material and financial resources.
Yes.
But if you lack the social resources and the cultural resources within that same community, it will be a struggle for you to survive. So because you belong to the community, a dent on one is a dent on all. So therefore we make sure that we preserve each other, we embrace each other, we fight for each other, we run together, we move together, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where we go. When we come back, we still belong to the same community. We still, are related to each other by those values within the community. I'll give you an example here. I have built this, rural home, but part of what I do is playing my role within the community is not everyone has got the resources to drill a borehole. But because I was able to drill a borehole, it gave me an opportunity to be able to serve the community with water. So I've set up an tap outside my gate where the community would come and get water, right? There are a lot of projects that I'm running here, and a lot of them, are projects that, are commercially viable. But because I don't have a huge space of land here, I am involving the community in terms of training them so that they also replicate what is here at their homestead, so that we increase the numbers, we scale up the production.
Yes.
If I'm going to be producing honey from this place, the most I can do with the hives that I've set up here is getting to about 150 hives. But the kind of products that I want to, reap out of the honey project, honey farming project, are bigger than what I'm able to do here. So when I involve the community, get them to go through the bee farming training program, I want them to be running the honey, production program within their own homesteads. What it means is that one member of the community can actually set up 50. The other one can do, 100. The another one can do 20. By the end of the day, cumulatively, we get to say 1,000, 1,500 hives.
Exactly.
We are producing enough honey that we can brand as a community and say, we've got enough for ourselves, we've got enough for the nation. We now need to be exporting organic raw honey. And we can pretty much determine the, quality of the product that we are producing. We can agree to say, let's reforest this area with the acacia trees so that our honey becomes special honey with a special taste. Or, eucalyptus trees, the jacarandas. That drive can only come when we are working together as a community, because they realize there is a benefit out of this. They will then participate.
You love thatching like that much, and it seems like those who are building back in the rural areas, you'll probably encourage them to use thatch.
I think there was a lot of wisdom from our forefathers when they designed the rendezvous architecture, the round huts, and it assimilates with the rural environment, and I love thatch because when it's hot, it's cool. When it's cold, it's warm. Exactly. So it protects you against the harsh, environmental challenges. So Thatch is the way to go, you know, especially when you are out here in the rural communities. It's cheaper, readily available material, but it also provides you with, you know, the essential need when it comes to buffet, you know, bracing yourself against the climatic conditions of the day.
Okay. We are talking about the bigger chunk of African people. They still live in the rural areas. I was surprised that the number is probably 70% of Africans still live in the rural areas. What are we supposed to do to work together as people in the cities and the rural areas so that we become one and improve Africa as a continent?
Yes. So the majority of the people are actually in the rural areas. And the beauty about running projects in the rural communities is that, you know, in terms of revenue, these are also the least banked communities. There are no banks here. I think you have realized that as we were driving here. We last saw banks when we were in town. Right here, there are no banks. So people here, they trade in cash.
Yes.
Right? They also do barter trading. So what it means is that you actually get the real value.
Yes.
Without any leakages in terms of you know, exchange controls and, you know, so forth. We are not really affected by the monetary policy. So it's possible to actually create your economy in the rural areas where you can survive and, you know, do very well whilst in the rural areas.
I'm really interested in what you're doing, The Country Boy. You have your own YouTube channel. You are going around showcasing the beauty of rural areas. I mean, it's really interesting.
Yes, so The Country Boy then became a brand.
Yeah.
Which was birthed after we hosted a real men's retreat here in Goromonze, and I had about 44 men who came here.
44?
Yes, so what used to happen is that when I was developing this place, I would bring my friends, we would, you know, relax here, talk about a lot of issues, and within the discussions that we will be having in these outskirts, something would then inspire us, you know, to be very creative about who we are as men and what we need to do. So that then became the, you know, foundation of building you know, discussions and talks around men's issues. So, you know, one of my friends then said, you know what, we need to mobilize a lot of men so that we can come here and then discuss these issues, you know, in one accord, and then in a space where men can be vulnerable. They deal with their fears. They also deal with the various challenges engulfing men today.
I don't think that there are many places where men can go and be vulnerable.
True. You know, especially when you are stuck in the city.
Yes.
The pressures of the city, when they buffet you real hard, you will not even think about opening up, you know, about what you are, you know, going through, the challenges that you are facing, and even sharing in your own successes and achievements.
Thank you, yeah.
You know, there is no one to pat you at the back and say, no, you are doing very well. Because a lot of the responsibilities that we have, especially when we are in the cities, are responsibilities that are not celebrated because they are naturally said to be men's responsibilities. So nobody would then say, you are taking good care of your family.
Nobody. Let's
pat you on the back and say, you are doing very well. Against all odds, you are doing very well. So you hardly find, you know, people who then say you are doing very well in the little achievements that you are making whilst you are out there. So when you come here, you then become vulnerable and say, you know what, I'm going through these challenges, guys. I've got these hurdles that I need to leap over. And as we share experiences and ideas and information, you then realize that, I'm not alone, and then you also get to learn how others are actually overcoming certain hurdles in life.
Powerful.
And you don't have to repeat the same mistakes, or you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to dive in and then get your life going as a man. So that's how the Country Boy was then birthed. After that retreat, and we have decided that we will host this retreat annually in October, so that we give men an opportunity to be able to speak. There are a lot of programs, events and activities that are targeted at women, to empower women.
Exactly.
To uplift women, and men seem to be lagging behind.
Exactly.
And the whole idea is to pull men and say, come out of the cocoon, let's move together. So the Country Boy, like you rightly said, I've been providing a couple of rural properties.
Yes.
One of the things that we've been driving so hard in men is that to have your own place away from the pressures of the city. You bump into a lot of people with mental, health challenges.
Exactly.
In the city.
In the cities.
Hardly in the rural areas, because here there is a breath of fresh air, there is peace and tranquility.
Yes.
Your mind is at rest. You are not pressured for anything. You are not in a hurry to do anything, but you do it at your own pace, at your own comfort. So it's very important to realize that a lot of the challenges, if a pandemic hits, it first hits in the city.
Exactly.
If you find it in the rural areas, it means somebody from the city has actually brought it here.
Exactly.
But otherwise, people in the city, and this is the reason why even in developed countries, when COVID hit, a lot of the people who had money, because the countryside out there in the Western world is a place for the rich. So they retreated to the countryside and left a lot of people to die in the cities. So when we were talking about all these numbers in New York of people who died, the majority of them were actually in the city.
Yes.
They became statistics within the city. But in the countryside, people were all good and living well,